Hello, welcome to the interview here on France 24. Question we're asking, is Germany losing interest in Europe? Now, a generation after the fall of the Berlin Wall, Germany is once again dominant on the diplomatic stage in a way that would have been unthinkable in recent years past. But ironically, just when Europe's debt crisis is giving Germany a chance to sort of showcase its new leadership role, a lot of Germans say they are resenting that role, and they don't want to play that role at all, and the responsibility. Many Europeans are, meanwhile, casting Germans as the bad guy, the sort of the villain out to get them. Well, my guest today, Jacqueline Hénard, welcome. You are a journalist, and you're also co-editor of a new collection of essays by leading figures, sort of debating the question of Germany and Europe, asking, what does it want? What do Germans think about Europe? What motivates Germany? And why do we all have such a hard time debating these questions? Thanks for being here. I want to start with the issue that really emblemizes, crystallizes for many people Germany's attitude right now to Europe, and that's Greece. Mm-hmm. We've been seeing the very loud and often violent riots and scenes on the streets of Athens. A lot of this is directed towards Germany. Germany seen as this stern taskmaster, forcing austerity measures down their throats that the Greeks want nothing to do with. Is this a fair portrayal of the role Germany's been playing?
Well, I would say it is clearly the way that the Greeks see it. The Germans would rather see themselves as being right, which everybody sees himself to be right. They would see themselves to be right insofar as there is no possibility to do anything else, any structural politics, any promotion, how to liberate growth, how to attract investment, if you do not get your homework done first, which is cleaning up the budget and creating some sort of state system that will carry economic politics into the future.
But can you make the case, many people would say Germany is taking this to such an extreme that in the name of this belt-tightening, they're not taking any of the human factors into account. And there's also a bit of almost antagonism, it would seem, towards the Greeks in this whole thing. It's almost getting personal.
I would say that there was some personal antagonism maybe 2 years ago. We're beyond that. From the German side, the problem is just seen as something that has gotten completely out of hand. This is one point. The second point, I would say, you say Germany is doing this, Germany is doing many things, many decisions are made on a European level, and some other Europeans are quite happy to go along with Germany and not to be out in the limelight, but to have Germany insist on budgetary discipline.
Well, it's by far, though, the dominant power right now. It's the only economy really up to speed right now in Europe. So by definition, it has to dictate the agenda, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, look at it has to dictate the agenda. I wouldn't agree. I mean,
maybe that's a bad way of putting it, but in other words, Germany is the only economy right now in Europe, I suppose, that by rights probably feels it can set the course.
I don't think that Germany sees itself as a country that wants to. I really refute this word dictate. Okay. I don't think that we should.
Okay, we made it softer. Yeah. Okay. Set the course.
Set the course.
Easier way of.
Yes, there is an attitude of either you do it our way or you do it our way. So it's a bit tough, obviously. But on the other hand, there is big exasperation with the fact that so little happens in Greece. The money is there, but the decisions are not carried through. So this is really a point of interrogation and of deep worries, I would say.
One of the questions we were asking, has Germany lost interest in Europe? And there was a time when Germany almost justified its whole existence on the basis of closer European integration.
It re-legitimized its existence
the whole federal
after
state.
The Second World War through Europe, together with France. Was Germany ever the strategic thinker? I'm not.
It was the economy,
really
right? It was the big economy always.
And Germany obviously participated in the design of the European project, but I would say that the big strategic thinker was France.
Some people would suggest that, I think some of your essayists actually suggested this, the very fact that Germany now is several generations removed from its darkest chapters of the last century, it feels more normal now. It's a normal power, with normal in quotes. And it perhaps feels it has the right to behave like any other power. Why shouldn't we protect our own interests and do what any other country would do in our position?
That's quite right. I would agree with you. The past is still very present. People are aware of it. But at the same time, Germans feel German. My children talk about Germany. I used to talk about the Federal Republic. So there's a generation, as you mentioned in the beginning, at the outset of our talk, there's a whole generation that grew up being German and not East German or West German with the stigmata of the Second World War. In your passport, on your passport, wherever you went, people asked you, are you from East or West? So there's a quite different attitude towards the fact of being German.
And would you say most Germans today think of themselves as German plus European, or is it more the pride really lies in we're German?
The pride, I don't know whether pride is really already a very strong feeling among Germans. I would say that they have a stronger feeling for being German. Regional identities are still very, very strong. Let's not forget that. And they do feel European, but they do no longer feel European in order to replace the fact that they're not feeling German.
So the two are not mutually exclusive.
No.
Angela Merkel herself, sometimes an inscrutable leader. A lot of people would argue that she is pragmatic, but also overly driven perhaps by the polls and public opinion. Would you agree with that assessment? Is it too harsh?
Polls and public opinion are very positive today for Angela Merkel. Is she driven by public opinion? Sometimes too much so. Is she really interested in Europe? I don't know. And I mean, obviously, from an intelligence point of view, she is very interested in Europe, and she invests a lot of time and energy into the European project and into renewing it and finding new ways to deal with the situation we are all in, more so than France. But on the other hand, is she a heartfelt European? I'm not so sure. It took ages. It took over 2 years for Angela Merkel to give a first speech where she was very positive and very emotional about Europe. She is so when you read it on paper. I watched the speech and everything was there, but she did not inhabit the speech. Somehow it did not come over as being a passionate European. A passionate European.
One of the essayists in your collection, Henrik Enderlein, he argues it's the role of any, and he used the word intelligent German government, to try to convince the German people that Europe is really in their interest. Closer monetary union, saving the euro, is in their interest. Is Angela Merkel effectively making that argument right now?
Well, you can see with this speech, I would say that she does not talk, but it's not only herself. There's not enough discussion about where we want to go in Europe. But all this discussion about where we want to go in Europe is about sharing our sovereign, or how do you say sovereignty?
Sovereignty.
Our
exactly.
sovereignty.
Yeah.
It's all about sharing sovereignty. And if Germany is quite prepared to do so, and I think that Angela Merkel is prepared to fight this through and to argue it through and to explain that there is a need for more sharing sovereignty.
But I'm sorry to butt in, she's facing resistance from her own constitutional court, which seems to want to preserve more of that sovereignty.
The Constitutional Court, yes, but not from the SPD. I would say that the political parties agree on this fact that there needs to be accrued sharing of sovereignty within Europe in order to help save the project. But what about the partners? What about France? There is no discussion
It's not just
at
about
all.
Germany.
You see, it's not just
Sure.
about Germany.
Sure.
There are many demands on Germany, but I think that all European countries need to have a debate on what do we want to do with Europe and why is Europe important. And looking at the French presidential debate, I would wish for some more debate on Europe and what to do and where to engage.
It is
ourselves.
interesting, in the little time we have left, bringing it back here to France. Do you think Nicolas Sarkozy has more influenced Angela Merkel's thinking on Europe, or do you think it's the other way around?
I think they have quite different visions of doing politics. I think that Nicolas Sarkozy and Angela Merkel have learned to work together. I think their work relationship has become quite efficient, which is very important in times of crisis.
They call it Merkozy here
Right.
in France.
And I would say that this is what explains that Angela Merkel came to France to support Nicolas Sarkozy in his not yet election campaign, which is very shocking in a way.
Almost unprecedented, correct?
Yes, it's almost unprecedented, and I think it was not very adroit in many points. But I think this explains why she ever went so far. It is the feeling that there is a need for a working relationship that works.
So I guess we could leave it on that note. The Franco-German axis, at least, seems to be functioning relatively smoothly now. But we have been speaking more broadly today about the question of Germany, what it thinks of Europe, its role within Europe. Obviously, a thought in progress. We'll have to come back to this at a later time. Jacqueline Hénard, thank you very much. A writer, journalist, co-author of a collection of essays about this very question, Germany's place in Europe. Thanks for being our guest today on the interview here on France 24. Thanks to all of you for watching the interview.